Hey guys, welcome to another video, Purple Political Talk here, with another video of Purple Projection Podcast, and we also have our co-host, Unbiased Election Predictions, or Projections. How are you doing?
Hi, everyone. I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. So this is a very cool episode we have for you guys today. So last week we talked about the Senate races and policy issues, and this week we're going to be talking about the future of elections to the 2020, post 2020, I guess, and the 2024 election. So what candidates will run and how would things change and the dynamic? So I first of all want to say hi guys, like what's going on. So please like and subscribe if you're not yet. So this is a very cool video. We do these weekly. They're released on Thursdays. So this is our Thursday thing. So you guys better be subscribed to see a lot of them more. So UP, do you want to say anything to your followers?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming here to watch this. Me and Purple are so excited to bring you the fourth episode. We did have a bonus one, I think, on Sunday. But this is the fourth episode of the Purple Projections podcast, and we are excited to talk, a bit more long-term. The previous three episodes have been focused on 2020 and policy, but this will be a little bit more futuristic, and I know there are a lot of people who are thinking ahead to 2024 and what the political landscape will look like. So this is the episode for you.
Yeah, so I really want to thank all of you guys for watching it. It's been a good series and a lot of people have liked it. So we're definitely going to continue to renew it week by week to see how it goes. It's been going great. So why don't we get started? So the first thing we're going to ask ourselves, what will be the state of the nation in 2024? If Trump or Biden serves the 2020-2024 term. So how will the nation look different or similar, and how would those things change before we start talking about candidates and things like that? So UP, do you want to start?
Yeah, so I think that there are two scenarios, but neither one really has an effect on the candidates. So say Trump wins re-election. Trump cannot run for a third term. If he wins re-election, he'll be term limited. And if Biden wins the election, he's not going to run. He already said he's not, and he'll be 81 or 82 by the time that the 2024 rolls around. So yeah, he won't be running for a second term. Now, if Trump's president, it'll be bad for the Democratic or for the Republican Party, because in 2006, I'm going to compare this to George W. Bush. Their midterms were a referendum on Bush in the Iraq War, and that did not go so well. Democrats picked up, I think, 7 Senate seats, and they flipped the House of Representatives that year. And 2 years later, as we know, 2008 was a huge landslide for the Democrats. So if Trump wins 2022 and 2024 are going to be horrible for the Republicans. Now, Biden wins, it's more of a toss-up because 2024 is demographic trends are 100% helping the Democrats. But usually the incumbent party doesn't do too great in the midterms. So in 2022, it could be bad for the Democrats, but it probably won't because they have a very good Senate map. So I think that it definitely does favor the Democrats. But again, Biden and Trump won't be in play for 2024 unless Trump does, shock everyone and lose in 2020, but then run 2020.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with you here because, look, at this point in time, I honestly feel like the hatred for Trump and the general disapproval for Trump, I think it kind of could fade out when we get to 2022 in the midterms. Yeah, he's still going to be unpopular, but remember, after the second term election, most presidents are sitting ducks. They're just sitting there signing stuff. The real big policy things need to be accomplished between the first 3 years of a presidency, which, I mean, we already passed that point. So, I mean, Donald Trump, at this point, if he wins, it's going to be a bloodbath because you're still going to have the Democrats, again, I guess, hungry for power because they haven't gotten the White House in, at this point, 8 years. And they'll probably win by big margins. Now, how could it be different? Economy is doing good. Generally speaking, there's no big things ruffling the feathers, anything like that. I think that, honestly, the Republican Party does have a chance of winning 2024, and it depends on who they run. If Donald Trump becomes unpopular, running a pro-Trump candidate won't be a good idea. But if you run a anti-Trump candidate by the Republicans, that may be a better idea. With Biden, it's also pretty tough because with Biden, you really don't know. Let's say he wins, and let's say his administration does well. Generally speaking, the person that's VP, they should be kind of favored to win the nomination. In this video, we're not going to include any candidates that were mentioned for VP. Nonetheless, we're going to look at it. And honestly, I think that Biden, the only thing that might hurt the Democrats is that his administration does either get nothing done or pretty much a very bad administration. So those are the things that can play out in this scenario. So UAP?
Yeah, I do think that a Biden presidency would hurt the Democrats more than a Trump president, or more than 4 years of Trump. Because again, I'm going to be honest, Joe Biden is not the future of the Democratic Party. He's there to beat Trump because Democrats cannot stand Trump, and they believe Trump is bad for the country. And he's the placeholder because we're experiencing the end of the moderate Democrats. Started with Bill Clinton, and they're coming to an end now. Democrats have ran moderate candidates in the past 6 elections, and that's coming to an end. But I'm not saying that I'm not saying that in 2024 they're not going to run a moderate, but the establishment Democrats are basically fading away, and Joe Biden is the last of that kind of era for the Democrats. So 2024 is a whole new era, and Joe Biden is a placeholder. He's there to beat Trump and kind of have a return, like a return to politics as usual, basically. So, yeah.
Guys, I just wanted to let you know, for example, this topic of is a Biden presidency good for the Democrats? When we were planning a topic for this podcast episode, it came up when me and UP were discussing it. And I honestly think that for the Democrats, I think the best thing they could do is not invest too much in the presidential race and just let it go how it would go, and focus a lot more on the congressional races. Those races, realistically, if they set up a great map for 2022 in the House and the Senate, and considering that Trump could be unpopular by then, that could help them have a super majority that would be hard to lose, like complete all of it by the time they get to 2024. And a Biden presidency really won't do anything, and if anything, it would get a lot of the progressive mad, and it probably would get a lot of the conservatives mad. So you would have a very big movement, anti-Biden movement. So I think that's where we should leave it for this topic, because I mean, this election would be impactful to 2024. And however the next administration, whether it is Trump or Biden, how they handle different issues, that's really going to matter. So this is what we think of this issue, and let's move on to our candidates. So the format of this video is that we chose 4 different candidates, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. We each chose 1 Democrat and 1 Republican, and we're going to talk about the 4 prospective people that they should run, their upsides or benefits, and kind of their things that would bring them back. So we're going to begin by going with our Democrats. So UEP, if you want to start with this one, you chose this one.
Okay, so I chose Gavin Newsom for a few reasons. Now, Gavin Newsom is the governor of the largest state in America, and he's kind of an Obama-type Democrat where he isn't moderate or progressive, and he would do a pretty good job of, say he's the nominee in 2024, unifying the party. So he's the current governor of California, largest state in America. He's the former the lieutenant governor of California, and he was the former mayor of San Francisco. So he is certainly not really a newcomer to politics. And I'm going to start off kind of with the pros. And I already mentioned one is that he unifies the Democratic Party. And also, I think that he kind of he has appeal to all groups. Now he is establishment, which probably isn't going to help him, but he has appeal to Latinos. They vote for him in overwhelming numbers in the 2018 midterms against a fairly strong conservative challenger who I really thought had a very good chance at getting over 40% of the vote. And in fact, most sources rated the California governor election as likely Democratic. So it was somewhat competitive. Some people thought it was going to be competitive. It was not. Newsom, he won by, I think, 23 points over John Cox. So, and he got a lot of support from the black vote and the Hispanic vote. He also did do, for a Democrat, very well with the white vote and won college-educated voters in overwhelming numbers. So he does have appeal to a lot of people, and I think that is what makes him a good candidate for 2024 for the Democrats.
Yeah, so with Gavin Newsom, I mean, I think another big benefit that he has is that he's kind of an experienced politician and he's quote unquote young. So you might notice that right now he's 52 and he's going to be 56 by the time that he becomes president or runs for president, supposedly. But I mean, just looking at him, he looks like he's a lot younger, and that really might help with getting some voters out with the charisma and things like that. He's a very charismatic person, and just seeing some of the races and some of the initiatives that he's put out in California, you can tell that he has very good policies, and everyone really supports him. So we know that he's very popular and he appeals to all these different groups of voters. But looking on the bad side, what are his bad benefits to him winning the Democratic nomination in 2024? I would personally say is that a lot of people might look at him again like as establishment, and with the Democrats, you're trying to unite the party, and that might be a problem. But again, he also appeals to some of the quote-unquote Bernie bros, which are going to be a big group of voters when it comes to 2024. UP, I know that you know a lot more about Gavin Newsom, so why don't you talk about some of his defects?
Okay, so Gavin Newsom overall is not super polarizing. He's very popular in California, and there are a lot of he actually got a pretty big chunk of the registered Republican vote. Now that's only registered, so we don't know who they're voting for down ballot. But registered Republicans actually are. He has a decent net approval with Republicans. Well, according to Morning Consult, he isn't doing great with them, but he's doing good considering that he is a pretty liberal Democrat. But again, he's not super progressive, and I think that he would do a good job of getting the Bernie Bros over. However, the Bernie Bros are, as we know, very picky with their candidates. They wouldn't support a lot of them wouldn't support Elizabeth Warren. A lot of them didn't. Well, most of them didn't like Kirsten Gillibrand, and it was either Bernie or Tulsi Gabbard, and Tulsi Gabbard didn't even get a ton of votes. So they're very picky with their candidates, and I think that would hurt Newsom. Plus, as Purple said, I'm going to touch on this again, as well. He's establishment, and when you look at these positions that he has held, governor of California, lieutenant governor, and mayor of San Francisco, those are all very high-ranking positions. I mean, he's the governor of a very big state. He is he was the lieutenant governor of a very big state, and he was the mayor of a pretty big city in that big state that has a lot of power, especially in the tech industry. So yeah, that's not going to help him. He also did. This is very nitpicky, and there are politicians who have worse quote scandals. And again, this isn't even a scandal, but as we all know, Sacramento is the capital of California. When he was mayor of San Francisco, he was overheard calling Sacramento a dump. So that's not good. But again, it's not going to hurt him in the long run. So yeah.
So honestly, I'm gonna say something. The only reservations, I don't live in California, so I mean, if we're talking about a Florida politician, for example, I would be able to talk more about them and know a little bit more about them. But with Gavin Newsom, like, as an outsider, and again, most people, when they meet these candidates, they're looking as outsiders. So people living in California are insiders in this scenario. I would honestly say that Gavin Newsom, one of the things that I see with him is that, yeah, he has the appeal of the, for example, the Californian Latino and the Californian African-American community. But that doesn't mean that nationwide, it's a very different voters appeal. For example, the African-American community is a lot different in North Carolina than it is in California. Or the Latino community is a lot different than in Florida that is in California. So maybe
100%.
Yeah, so probably speaking, yeah, he has appeal to the Californian voter. But again, when it comes to the other big factions and other groups between these minorities, maybe he won't have that big of appeal. And nationwide, I don't know. I mean, again, independents, they're really who decide the election at this point. And Gavin Newsom, I see him getting somewhat of the independent vote, especially if he's against a pro-Trump candidate. If he's not, he's like going against pretty much equal, and it's going to be based on policy. What might hurt him is some of his policies are very liberal. And remember, at a nationwide stage, the Democrats can't risk a chance of running someone who's super liberal because then they're going to lose the moderate vote and the independent vote. So that is my stance with Gavin Newsom. I know UAP knows him better because that's his governor. Nonetheless, UAP, do you have anything else to say?
Yeah, I think that's basically it. Gavin Newsom overall, I disagree with this, but there are a lot of people who, well, the majority of Californians believe that Gavin Newsom has handled COVID-19 well. Uh, I disagree with that. I think that he got too lenient with his reopening, but he was the first governor to shut down the state in the beginning of March. So yeah, I do have to go for 2 minutes. So Purple, I think just talk for the next one, talk, and I'll just be recording the whole time. So
Okay, so Gavin Newsom, again, we talked about him, and he's a very interesting guy. And at the end of the day, we know that his support in California is very high with conservatives, with all groups. But remember, the people living in California are a lot different from those living in the Midwest and living in the Sun Belt. So that's another thing we didn't talk about. So I honestly feel like the Midwest is going to be a crucial area, especially when it comes to a post-Trump and Biden. So I think honestly, a post-Trump era would be looking at if Donald Trump wins the election, it's probably going to be because of the Rust Belt. So if the Democrats can't run a candidate that's appealing to the Rust Belt voter, it's going to be very hard for them to do that. And I think that's one thing we didn't talk about actually. So the Rust Belt voter is a type of voter that's going to be important in elections coming up. So I mean, from now towards, the time where America kind of, the political parties kind of completely changed the map, we're going to have to look at some voters that appeal in other places. Gavin Newsom has great appeal amongst as an establishment candidate. But when it comes to reaching out to these areas that for long have been seen like states that have been lost or states that have no economic growth, we still don't know, as he hasn't handled too much of economic growth. Yeah, some of these areas, like for example, San Francisco's, because especially it had a very big tech growth. He still doesn't. I don't feel like for the Democrats it would be a viable option for them to go with Gavin Newsom. I mean, straight off the facts, because he has to appeal more to the Sunbelt voter, which he kind of still does. But I see him doing very well amongst suburbs. And at the end of the day, that's a big voting group. But we'll see. Gavin Newsom, interesting candidate, governor of California. And yeah, so we finished with Gavin Newsom, and we're gonna move on to Andrew Cuomo. So Andrew Cuomo is the incumbent governor of New York. He's been very popular because of his handling of coronavirus. He's currently 62. He's going to be 66 if he runs for president. And he's very charismatic. Charismatic in a different way. He's not one of those big speakers that would go out and hold these huge rallies with a lot of people, but he's a very likable person. He was also former Attorney General from New York, and he was former HUD Secretary under Clinton. So with him, the only things I see is that, one, he's very, very establishment. I would even go to say that he's more moderate to conservative Democrat. If you guys don't know, his father was also the governor of New York. And the thing here with Andrew Cuomo that I don't see working is uniting the party. Andrew Cuomo would be popular amongst Republicans and Democrats. So if they can offset the voters that are not voting with Republican votes, I think Andrew Cuomo is the perfect person. Andrew Cuomo appeals amongst minorities. He has great appeal amongst Midwest and hard-working class voters. So that might really help him. UEP, are you there?
Yeah, I am. Sorry. Yeah. Andrew Cuomo, in my opinion, Andrew Cuomo has a lot of appeal to a lot of voters, and I think that's that's general consensus. But again, we are talking about a guy who is, kind of like Purple said, a pretty conservative Democrat, and he doesn't get a lot of attention for it, but he is a Democrat who is very against the Green New Deal and is very against Bernie Sanders and most of his legislation. So he's also against AOC, which could be interesting because they're both from the same state and both have very high political aspirations. But he's a conservative Democrat, and that means he has appeal to the Obama Democrats, the conservative Democrats, and the moderates who aren't really
Republican moderates.
Yeah, and also independents who aren't affiliated with the party. So yeah, he has appealed to a lot of people, but he does not have a ton of appeal to the Bernie Bros, which cost Hillary Clinton dearly in 2016, and Bernie Sanders He was one of the main reasons she lost in 2016. But yeah, so Andrew Cuomo, I don't think would. I think he'd win the election, but he'd have a lot of backlash from Bernie supporters. So those are the cons, and the pros are probably you can talk about them.
So I'm gonna tell you something right now. I feel like with Andrew Cuomo, I feel like, for example, it's different from Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, she was unpopular, and then you added the Bernie Bro effect on it. So with Andrew Cuomo, he can reach out and get those Republican voters, reach out and get those independent voters. So generally speaking, especially if it's a Democratic wave year, he shouldn't have a problem winning the election. And since he has good appeal amongst Latinos, African Americans, amongst white voters, amongst Rust Belt voters, that's really going to help him. And suburb voters he's also very good with. So he has very good appeal. Now, what would be the difference here? Maybe they don't like that he's a stereotypical old white man, because essentially that's what U.S. politics has turned into. But we're going to see a very actually interesting change when we look at the Republican candidates. We're going to get into that later. But yeah, so with Andrew Cuomo, that's what I feel like. The only problems he might have is kind of like losing the Bernie Bros. But other than that, I think overall he's a very strong candidate. UP?
Yeah, so I like everything you said there. And the pros, well, first of all, he received a ton of media love for his handling of COVID-19. And there is a brand, Cuomo Sexual, of people who, kind of like a joke, people who think that Andrew Cuomo is a very good governor and like fans of him, kind of like, people wearing MAGA hats are big fans of Donald Trump. So Cuomo has a lot of appeal. He is I didn't know a ton about him back in February, but now I do, because during April and May, I woke up every morning and saw him as press conferences talking about the cases and showing leadership. That is very valuable, and especially in these times. And I think that people would turn to him because they saw him and saw what he did in New York. And I think that he would win an election pretty handily, depending on his opponents. I think he's a very strong candidate, probably stronger than Gavin Newsom. But again, but neither of them are weak. Like a weak Democrat candidate would be like AOC or something like that. But Cuomo is a strong candidate, and Democrats would not really make a mistake if they do run him in 2024.
Yeah, so I feel like Andrew Cuomo, he has a source of leadership. We saw how he took New York, the most densely populated state in some areas. I mean, New York City is the most densely populated city in the U.S. So essentially what he did is that he had to handle all these people. And remember, New York City is mostly made up of apartments if you live in the city. So that's a bunch of people with many coronavirus cases. They did end up having a lot of people with coronavirus, but compared to the number of residents, so per capita, it was relatively smaller since you had a lot of people living in the area. So, I mean, the way he handled it was pretty good. He was like one of the governors that got the most praise, if not the most, from COVID-19. And that source of leadership will probably get other voters to come out and vote for him. UEP?
Yep, I think I've said everything I want to say about Cuomo. So yeah, overall strong candidate, and he has a lot of potential in a general election.
Yeah, so Cuomo's very interesting, and we're going to move on to our Republican candidates. So before we begin, I just want to say, very ironically, I feel like the Republican candidates that we chose can be seen like they look like more of Democrat, like a candidate that Democrat will run, if it weren't for like the policy issues, compared to what like they usually do run. So let's begin, and we have Josh Hawley. So UP.
Okay, so I picked Josh Hawley for quite a few reasons. He's a rising star, and he is without a doubt going to be the future of the Republican Party. Him, John James, and like maybe I don't know, maybe no. Well, I'm thinking of Democrat, or sorry, I'm thinking of conservatives from the Midwest. So yeah, him and John James are probably like the top two. But I chose Hawley because he's actually won a Senate race before. unlike John James. And again, John James, he ran in a blue state and came pretty close, whereas Hawley ran in a red state against an unpopular incumbent. So in 2018, he unseated Claire McCaskill, the senator from Missouri. She was unpopular by the time that the election rolled around. She was a conservative Democrat, so she did come close to winning, but she lost by, I think, 5 or 6 points. So it wasn't a squeaker, but it was still pretty close for Missouri. So yeah, he has only been in the Senate for 2 years, and I kind of think of him like an Obama for the Republican. Now, Obama, he was elected to the Senate in 2004, and
Ran for president in 2008.
yeah, so 4 years in the Senate, so not a ton of time in the Senate, and Hawley's only been in the Senate for less than 2 years. So 2024, he'll still be relatively new and not really establishment. He is a populist, and he is a Trump supporter, which could be good for him, could be bad. But yeah, so he's also not super establishment. He held one elected office before he ran for Senate. He was the Attorney General of Missouri, and again, not super establishment type position. So yeah, I think that he would be a pretty strong candidate for the Republicans to run. And overall, really interesting. So Purple, do your introduction on Hawley.
So Josh Hawley, I feel like he's a young, charming candidate. He's like technically Obama. I feel like he has a little bit more experience than Obama because he's ran like the Attorney General, so he knows how to deal with fiscal things that like better than Obama did when he came to presidency. As a U.S. senator, has a lot of experience, whereas Obama just like had the before he ran for Senate, he had the Illinois State House. Nonetheless, Obama came in and did a great job, I think. I think Josh Hawley, if he ran for president and won, he would do amazing things with the country, with bringing conservative voices and young voices together. And I think he would have great appeal amongst Midwest voters and even amongst some moderate Democrats. So one thing I want to know is that if he does run for president, he's going to have to give up his Senate seat if he does and makes the general election. Because look, his seat was won in 2018, so he'll be up for re-election in 2024. So he's gonna have to make that choice. Nonetheless, I think if he does make it, he's probably gonna win if he's going against a candidate that's a little bit more flawed. And I think honestly, this is the future of the Republican Party. I would say like also younger members of the Republican Party. Maybe who knows, John James, or I think Ben Sasse is pretty young if I'm correct. So those type of people, those are the people that are going to be the future of the Republican Party, the future Mitch McConnells, and the future leaders of the Republican Party. So I think Josh Hawley, he has some advantages, especially when it comes to electorally, because he's close to the Midwest. And yeah, I mean he's very appealing to a lot of different groups of voters. UAP?
Yeah, so starting off with the pros, Josh Hawley, he has a lot of appeal to a lot of voters. He's from the Midwest. He won a statewide election. Honestly, he won that election pretty decisively. I mean, he was against a two-time incumbent, Claire McCaskill, so he did win by 5-6 points, so that's good for him. Also, he has appeal. He's a populist. He's pretty young, so not super establishment. And I think I already listed all those things. So that's I'm gonna keep it short for that list of pros. So
yeah, so I think a big common theme we're seeing is that the future of American politics is populism. The Republicans and Democrats are both they're running populist candidates, and just looking at Josh Hawley, great appeal from the Midwest. He has all these he's young, he's charming, and he has all these things for him. And look, a politician, I would feel like Josh Hawley would do a great job kind of retail politics. So that would be like going out and sitting down with people, giving speeches at rallies. Since he's so young, he would be 44 if he assumes the presidency. And I think he would do a great job. And Josh Hawley is a very strong candidate. I mean, what are his he doesn't have many major drawbacks, but I feel his good points are very high, especially for Republicans, because at this point in time, Republicans either run a very old person, an old white man, stereotypical Republican, or they could run someone newer like Josh Hawley. And honestly, this is where the future of the Republican Party is headed. So, UEP, do you want to talk about the drawbacks?
Yeah, so the cons of a Josh Hawley candidacy for the Republican Party is that he is still a, controversial topic, but he is still a white man. And I'm going to be honest, the stereotype of the Republican Party is a white man. Hawley is young, which does bode well for him, but he's still a white man. And in the future, the Republicans are not going to win elections by only getting the old white male vote. That's not going to help them anymore. America is becoming a new minority-dominated country, and women are turning out to vote in record numbers. So that's not going to help him. He also kind of did run a bit of a dirty campaign for Senate in Missouri. So, it wasn't super dirty, but he did do a lot of smearing of Claire McCaskill, and he did dig up some tapes that he should not have gotten his hands on in the first place. So, yeah. But other than that, I honestly think that's basically it for the con. So, only two major flaws, but again, not too many scandals compared to the scandals that our candidates have right now.
Yeah, so especially when you're talking about this election, I think diversity will still be an issue. I mean, all this the most diverse person is the last person on our list. I would say. But I think honestly, the way that the 2024 election is going, there's either going to be a very contested Democratic primary, and we're not talking about the Democratic primary as of right now, but the Republican primary I feel would be very contested. But there's actually very few candidates that would run for president because less people want the job now. I think honestly, the primaries things, it really does matter. It depends on how popular the last president was. So I honestly feel like Josh Hawley, he would be a great pick because he's not fully for Trump, but he's also not against Trump. So maybe that would hurt him because he's a little bit more towards Trump than many other Republicans. But still, he does still have the critical of Trump side, which certainly would help him in these races. UEP, do you have anything else to say about Josh Hawley?
I think that's it. And overall, I think he'd be a pretty strong candidate.
Yeah, so that was Josh Hawley. We're going to move on to Nikki Haley, and it's my bad. I forgot to change her name. It says California. It's actually South Carolina. That is my bad. So Nikki Haley, I chose her. She's a young Republican, quote unquote, compared to other Republicans. She is former ambassador to the United Nations, and she's a former governor of South Carolina. What I understand is that many people don't like her in South Carolina, but nationwide, she would be a very good politician. She's somewhat moderate, and she's actually might be somewhat liberal. She's very establishment Republican. She had connections to the Trump camp. She moved out, and she honestly brings great things for the Republican Party, as she would bring on the new movement of Republicans. This is to show that not all Republicans are old white men. And I think that she has great policies, and she stood for what she wanted in the UN. So I think that would be a great point. She's currently not a big political figure in the United States, maybe like CUOMO was, but still, she still does have a very big dominant group of support. So UEP?
Yeah, so unlike our previous three people, NEWSOM, CUOMO, and Hawley, Nikki Haley currently does not have any elected office. Now, she was the former ambassador to the United Nations under Donald Trump, and she was the former governor of South Carolina. So she has held political offices before, and she is kind of an establishment, candidate. So I don't think that really bodes well for her, but she is a woman, and that kind of goes against stereotype of Republicans. And she is, she's relatively young for a politician. 48, she'll be 52 by the time that she runs. So yeah, overall, I'd say that she's a pretty strong candidate for the Republicans, but her establishment type of aura, I guess, is probably going to come bite her in the back. And she's not a populist, unlike Josh Hawley. And I think that the future of the Republican Party if they want to have even the slightest chance at winning elections, it's going to be populism, and Haley doesn't represent that. So now we're going to move on to our pros with purple.
So I feel like honestly, Nikki Haley has her drawbacks, but I think she would appeal. Okay, although she may not be a populist, she would appeal very well to the women voter, to the suburbs. But so I mean, she is the perfect candidate for the suburbs, and that is a group the Republicans need to take back if they want to win elections in the future. Nikki Haley, like you said, is not a populist, and populism only will get you somewhere. But I feel like she has some good policies. And after she left office from the Trump administration, she's become very, very bipartisan and kind of moderate. So if you put her on the ideological scale, she would be anywhere from like moderate to like center right, so center Republican. And I think that's really going to help her when it comes to appealing to the suburbs, because that's exactly what a suburban voter looks like. And her policies they're not as radical. And I think a lot of voters are voting on radicalism. If people start thinking that something is way too radical, they will not vote for it. So that's really going to help Nikki Haley at this point. She's from South Carolina, a very growing area. And I think she would do good, especially as it comes to holding on to those areas and not making them go to the Democrats as fast. And that might be a good thing for the Republicans to consider. UP?
Yeah, so I like everything you said there, and I do want to touch on her ideology. So if we turn back the clock to like say 2017, the beginning of her reign as ambassador to the UN, she was actually more to the right than she is now. She is pretty moderate, but still a right winger. So she's like moderate center right, kind of like you said, and she is. I kind of think of her as a female Mitt Romney. Now, obviously, Mitt Romney is very anti-Trump. Haley's not, but like other than that, very similar candidates. The right of center, but not super conservative. They're not populists, and they have a lot of appeal to the suburbs. And they do have a good shot at winning the moderate vote. Now, even against Obama, who is seen by many to be pretty moderate, Mitt Romney won the moderate vote by 5 points in 2012. Haley could probably win the moderate vote over a lot of candidates, including Gavin Newsom, and probably not Andrew Cuomo, but again, Gavin Newsom, she probably beat in the moderate vote, but it is but Newsom could beat her. We're not talking about that right now. So she's moderate. She has appeal to the suburbs and could take them back because the Republicans got murdered in the suburbs in 2018. And if they want to do well in future elections, kind of like you said, they got to be competitive in the suburbs. And Haley is a good candidate for that. And so in terms of electability, she would obviously, she's a woman. She would help the Republicans with women. So yeah, I think overall she has her strengths. So now we're going to go to cons.
Yeah, but I also want to add something else about Nikki Haley. I think that honestly, one of Trump's best policies, I guess, was his foreign policy. That's like one of the most outstanding things that he's done as president. Probably next to the economy and improving it as well. I would put them like hand in hand, like the economy and foreign policy. And Nikki Haley is for the most part, like a lot of the Trump foreign policy, Nikki Haley is responsible for. So maybe that would give her some votes because she has stopped many conflicts. She kind of ended some of the wars in other places, and she's done many things. Especially, for example, she's done very good diplomatic work in areas like Latin America and the Middle East. So that might really help her because, again, as ambassador to UN, she was one of the head of Trump's foreign policy. And I think that's one of the redeeming things of this administration. So going on to her cons, UP, or do you have anything to say about that?
Okay, so Haley is establishment, neocon. And it's pretty striking to me how, like, the Republicans in terms of 2024, I can't think of a more establishment type candidate other than maybe Mike Pence. But even then, I think Pence is not worse than Haley in terms of establishment. That's not gonna help her. She's not. She also isn't a populist and probably wouldn't do too well in the Midwest. And the Midwest is kind of on the uptick for the Republicans, but still Haley probably wouldn't win it. And if she went against Newsom or a Cuomo for the Democrats, she probably would not win the election because of her stance on many issues, including the economy. She's not a populist, and she doesn't she doesn't really reflect the America First mentality that a lot of these Rust Belt voters want in their lives, I guess.
Yeah, so Nikki Haley, she has the contributing qualities, but when it comes to her drawbacks, I guess it would be that with the Republican Party, she is going to split a lot of the support because she's not as right wing, and that's what Republicans like. So maybe getting through her primary is going to be a little difficult, but if she chooses the right vice president, getting through the general election would be a breeze. I feel like Nikki Haley is a very strong candidate. She's probably, I would say, when it comes to the best candidate. So for the Democrats, it's probably Andrew Cuomo. For the Republicans, I would say it's first Josh Hawley. But when it comes between NEWSOM and Nikki Haley, they have very similar things. They have very similar issues that they're facing and drawbacks. So that's my opinion of Nikki Haley. I think she's very likable. Nonetheless, I mean, everyone else can have their own opinion. So, UP, anything else about Nikki Haley?
I think that's it for me.
So, yeah, this was the last person we had on our list. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. So, this is our episode 4 on the 2024 presidential election, a post-Trump / Biden USA. So, guys, we're both really close to reaching 250 subscribers. Can we get Purple Political Talk and UEP to get to 250 subscribers? Can we do it? I think we can. Guys, remember to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. We have great things coming soon. UEP, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, so thank you guys for watching this video. Me and Pro did work really hard on this. Purple, he did do basically all of the cinematology and graphics they're seeing on your screen right now. And we both, obviously, as you know, did talk. So it'd really help us out if you could hit the red subscribe button for both of our channels. On my end, I'll be putting the link to Pro Political Talks channel. He has very unbiased content. And if you are subbed to Purple and not me, or are just a regular Purple viewer, I do hope that you'll give me a chance and go over to my channel. Check me out. I do post videos daily. So, I appreciate all the time that you guys are taking to watch the episode, and I hope to see you guys next week.
And I want to give a special shout out to the people in the premiere chat. It's always fun to chat with you guys. And I've never, I don't mention you guys in my videos, but I know you're always there because I always premiere my videos. I want to give a special thanks to all of you guys. But every single video you guys go and chat in the chat, at least if it's only for 10 or 15 minutes. It's still very fun, and we can all interact and give our opinions about politics. And it's interesting because we have so many good voices and strong voices who are voicing out their opinions on the political content that we're giving. So, guys, remember, this political series, Purple Projection Podcast, we've been working on for a long time, right, UEP? I mean, it's a lot of work. We have to plan. We have to, look at the candidates or what we're going to project. I have to make the cinematology. UEP takes care of, giving me kind of the outline for what we're doing. And it's a very interesting podcast. And I know you guys enjoy it. So if you guys really do enjoy it, smash that like button. Can we get let's get both channels this video, let's get them to 20 likes. If we can, it would be great. And I think we might be able to do a bonus episode coming soon. So guys, again, Purple Projection Podcast is thankful for you guys, and I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. UEP?
Yep, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of Purple Projections. I hope you enjoy, and kind of like Purple said, I love all of you Premiere people. Thank you guys so much for being there, and yep, I think that's it. So
yeah,
bye everyone.
So guys, last thing I want to say, if you disagreed with anything we said, please put it down in the comments or in the premiere chat. And remember to like the video. This really helps. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and goodbye.